Great presentations. Okay, a little spark of hope now, right? So now it's time to turn our attention back to some gloom and doom, to an issue that the legislature and voting public does not seem to be able to get right, and that is the issue of retail theft. The Legislative Summit is proud to bring you a panel of experts to discuss the retail theft epidemic and California's public safety response. You could argue it all started with Proposition 47, and you heard this morning how the legislature has been hesitant to adequately draw attention to that failed ballot proposition. Since then, everyone in this room has dealt with the aftermath of Propositions 47, 57, and 64, and the countless legislative mandates that have tied your hands over and over again. Now it's time for a discussion about where we can go from here. To this conversation and to the stage, please welcome a few individuals who will lend to this conversation in the coming moments. Would you please welcome Julian Canete, President and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Come on up, please, have a seat. Nate Haderlie, who will be representing the Californians Against Retail and Residential Theft Coalition. Is there a California coalition in favor of retail theft? That's what I want to know. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And Bobbie Singh-Allen, Mayor of Elk Grove and also a business owner herself. Welcome. So I'll throw this question out to all of you. If you had a magic wand and starting tomorrow, the legislature could do one thing to curtail retail theft, what would that thing be?
You're throwing that to us?
Yeah.
Push that? Awesome. To answer the first question, we get that asked every time we meet with chambers of commerce, business associations, just everybody in the community, of who's not in favor of stopping crime, to which our response would be anybody that's writing a bill that is not trying to prevent this from happening. So we're not that it's a coalition against us, but it's definitely, as you heard today, there's a lot of bills and a lot of discussion that is being had in the Capitol of victims. People that commit crimes are more important than the people that are affected by those crimes, and that's what we're trying to flip. Sorry, what was the second question then?
No, it was actually, if you had a magic wand and starting tomorrow, the legislature could do one thing. In other words, you could compel them to do one thing to curtail this retail theft situation. What would it be?
I'll pass that to Julian and Bobbie.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm the proud mayor of Elk Grove, but I also represent the American Petroleum and Convenience Store Association. So these are the gas station owners and convenience store owners. Retail theft is something very important to our industry. Not only are our members being murdered, but we are facing a huge crisis with retail theft. I mean, I hate to be so bold as to say, that public safety group that Assemblywoman Rubio mentioned, it is the public endangerment group. There are so many bills that die right there in that committee. So I would ask for a change in the makeup of that committee so that it's more balanced and reflective of our California values, which are not the progressive values that are purported statewide. At the end of the day, as a mayor, I care about my city in terms of public safety. It is the number one issue that is of concern to our residents. We need to go back to our basics. And I think, mayors have that role. We can break through that political gridlock and really try to step up and serve the needs of our community. But it is those relationships, but a change in the makeup of those committees where these bills don't even see the light of day, that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable because it is endangering every one of us. So I do want to say first and foremost to thank all of you. I'm a mayor that proudly supports our law enforcement, and we need to hold our local elected officials accountable before they even reach the legislature.
And to your point, very interesting, we had a panel of advocates this morning, very distinguished group of people who I think to the person acknowledged that if these bills, the good common sense bills could get through the Assembly Public Safety Committee, they would make it on the floor. They'd pass. So it's those committees, I think, that are the problem. So very, very keen observation. Mr. Canete, did I butcher your name, sir?
No, not too bad. Canete, close
I
enough.
didn't realize there was a modest
Wow,
butchery as an option.
I don't even pronounce it right, according to my mom. So
I'm on mom's side.
I'll just do this disclaimer first, or disclosure. So, number one, I feel real safe in this room, of course.
Yes.
But as I was introduced, I'm president and CEO of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. But in a prior lifetime, as I call it, I was a deputy sheriff just south of here in San Joaquin County for about 7 years. So know a little bit about law enforcement from my times there. But you asked what's the one thing we can do, and I'll just go out. I was reading your guys' legislative list. So there's AB, what is it, by Alanis, AB 355, right, which would repeal Prop 47. And I think this is an important area that, we need our business owners, and I'll do it from the business perspective, is they're getting hit hard, right? People come, especially young people, they know, hey, the threshold is $950, right? Anything under that is just petty theft. I remember when I was a deputy, petty theft was $250, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and
You could take them to jail if they had a prior offense.
exactly. And so now these individuals know that they can get away with $950. If they get caught, we get a ticket, show up to court maybe. If they don't get caught, hey, they get away with it. The problem is that $950 item, or let's say it's an $800 item. And as the panelists up here will attest to, is that's the business owner's probably his health insurance premium. That's a lot of money going out the door that really oftentimes they feel nothing is being done about, right? And I think one of the things that I tell our business owners, I tell law enforcement, is that law enforcement is real important from a business development, economic development perspective in their communities, right? Because if business owners don't feel they're safe, or that police will take action against something, they're not going to open up the businesses. We're not going to have a tax base, create a tax base. I think they know that your hands are tied, and we try to tell them that it's this legislation like Prop 47. We had, I think, Sheriff Cooper, when he was in the assembly, proposed Prop 20, right, which actually would have done some amendments to Prop 47, but it got no traction. I know our people supported it. Law enforcement supported it, but definitely didn't get any traction. So that's one bill you can get on and tell them, hey, 355, we need to pass it. And as what was just said, and by your advocates, if it gets out of committee, I think it's going to pass. I really do. I don't know if you had Assemblymember Alanis here yet.
No.
So Assemblymember Alanis, for those of you that don't know, is a sheriff sergeant out of Stanislaus County.
Sorry, he was here this
He was
morning.
here,
Yes.
great guy. He was with us last night, but he's introducing this bill. We're supporting it. But unfortunately, in the politics of California, he's Republican. I think it'll get out of committee because he is the vice chairman. His chairman of the committee, of the Public Safety Committee, isn't big on, he wants to reform law enforcement, right? And so we've got to get past there. So if we can get it past there and get enough support for it to get out of committee, maybe we'll have a fighting chance on the floor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go in the reverse order now. Let's start with you, Mayor. What kind of conversations have business owners of any size had with legislators on the issue? And do you feel as though the message is getting through? And I'll be glad to repeat that for others when you go through.
Appreciate that.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. So as mayor, I will always say all politics is local, and it starts at the local level. And we encourage our members to develop relationships with their city council members, with their district attorney, with their sheriff, in addition to their assembly members and senators. It goes back to what Assemblywoman Rubio mentioned. Those relationships are key. If they're not hearing from retailers and what it's like being a retailer in today's world and how dangerous it is, they will just be a demographic, a statistic. So creating those relationships is key. And so what we do, not only do we have advocacy days, but we do this really at the ground level, at the grassroots level, and ensure that our members are establishing those relationships, inviting them to their stores, reminding all local and statewide officials about the jobs that they create. most of these families that I represent are from India. And so we are minority-owned business owners. And there's that little bit of intimidation of engaging with government. So I try to help break down some of those barriers, but it's inviting members to their stores, establishing a relationship with law enforcement that covers their beat so that you have that partnership. It also is that responsibility of the retailer to not just run their business, but in part of running your business is establishing those relationships. So that is something that we work on every day to ensure that our members are not only equipped, but they know who their representatives are. Bring them to the store. Go on ride-alongs. Those are always great ways to get to know your officer. I do those very regularly. It also humanizes law enforcement to understand what it's like being a police officer or a sheriff or what have you. But being in charge of public safety is a huge responsibility.
Thank you. Julian?
Sure. Everything the mayor said, again, for the business, number one, Nate is with what we call CARRT. Sometimes I call it CARRT because I get the acronym mixed up. But CARRT, right? What is it? Californians
against retail and residential theft.
The business community, number one, that's one way how we're trying to, build coalition to say, hey, we need reform here, or we need some changes. We need to untie law enforcement's hands so they can do their job out there. And so that bills like, the Albanese bill that's coming up, a couple others, and definitely supporting those bills. I mean, when the CARRT team called us and said, hey, would you guys be willing to join this coalition? And I know they were kind of surprised because I just said, yeah, sure. Some organizations said, well, let me go take it to the board. Let me take it to our policy committee. I don't like doing that. It takes too long. So, but it's the right thing to do, right? And we understand more, I think, our small business owners. And, the pandemic taught us how important small business is, right? I mean, in the past, it was just like, okay, they're out there, this and that. But, as we got them closing down and people out of jobs or restaurants aren't open, people can't go places to eat. I mean, the tax base dwindles and everything else. So now I think we have a little bit more of an opportunity with small business is saying, and I say, oh, let's take the car out for a test drive then, let's see how much clout we really have. And really tell these guys that we're hurting. And, we're coming out of this pandemic and we don't need this retail theft issue hurting, business growth and economic growth in our communities. And I think, the mayor made a good point about, especially you all getting to know the legislators but more importantly, them understanding your job, right? I remember telling people, you don't understand the job, right? The wives, right? They always think something else. And I said, no, you don't know what's going on. But, and my wife says it now, right? She goes, well, why do that? I said, you have to be in their shoes, right? And you have to be out there. And I think it's important that like ride-alongs and they understand what law enforcement goes through day in and day out there, what you're faced with. I used to tell the guys all the time, I said, we're the first visible form of government out there, or you all are. I'm not anymore, but you all are the first visible form of government. And most of the times, it's a negative experience, right? That citizen has, right? Even if it's a traffic ticket, even if it's a parking enforcement, given a ticket for parking, too long or whatever, or I've been burglarized and, we're thinned out and it's just not a priority call, but we'll get there. But as we all know, the person who's been burglarized, they've been violated, and that's important to them. But, you're that first line of defense, you're that most visible form of government. And oftentimes it's a negative connotation people get. And I think we have to kind of overcome that, but they have to understand what law enforcement goes through day in and day out in those type of situations. Right, so.
Thank you, sir. Nate,
yeah.
Another question?
No, I think I got it. Okay. Appreciate it. I think first I'll give you a little background of why CARRT was organized, why we got together and decided that a coalition of individuals and local chambers of commerce, and we've got local elected officials. We've got well over 100 members on our coalition right now, which to us seems big, but into the grand scheme of it all, it's rather small coalition for this topic. We organized this coalition in last year in May. We officially started or officially formed, but we started having discussions probably about December of 2021 when we saw a lot of news coverage of rising crime. And then it really, no pun intended, went off the rails when the news in LA that the train cars were getting robbed of the goods that were slowing down as they were going through LA. And we said, nobody's doing anything about this. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's trying to figure out anything. Sorry, I shouldn't say nobody. The business community is just saying, we're getting robbed. Please help us, but they're not doing anything. People were advocating for the crime, that nobody was advocating for the crime victims, and a lot of people, when they're asked why you did it, they think it's a victimless crime when you go and rob somebody's store and you're just trying to grab a bottle of whatever. My boss has a good friend down in San Diego that he tells us every other day he's getting a bottle of something ripped off his liquor shop, and for him that's one of his employees' hourly wage out the door. Or more. And so we officially started in May of last year, and we organized on a premise of two things. One, we wanted to figure out and we wanted to learn from the local communities, from district attorneys, sheriffs, police, small businesses, what's going on? What are you seeing? What's not being told in the media? What's that story? And then the second thing was we wanted to educate policymakers in their own districts about what it is that these individual businesses, what these chambers of commerce, what they're seeing, and get their perspective and help them understand that it's not a victimless crime. It's not just somebody down on their luck. It's not even organized retail crime that a lot of the retailers are looking at with these rings of organized members going around and hitting it. It's people bored. It's people that got used to a lifestyle during the COVID shutdown that, they were getting $2,000 extra a month every month, and they got bored and just trying to find something to do. And so what we did last year was we met with Assemblymember Joan Sawyer, Senator Bradford, Senator Ochoa Bo. We tried to meet with everybody that was in the public safety to say, look, you had bills that were introduced to your committees and not a one got out. Not even ones that were going to try and criminalize fentanyl for youth. So we couldn't figure out why are these bills not passing through. And so then this year we're doing things like this, where we're trying to figure out how can we move the needle a little bit more. And we're urging our coalition members to get more involved with the bills. And so we're trying to figure out, what are these bills? What's it going to impact you as law enforcement? And how can we as a coalition partner with you to encourage people to either back or kill a bill? And figure that out. So that's, I think, answers the question, hopefully,
Yeah.
in a roundabout way.
And to Nate's point, if I may add, the organized theft is less pervasive than the everyday mom and pop shops that are getting hit in the retail industry. So those hundreds of thousands of dollars are your neighbors, they're your friends that have invested in communities. This isn't the the Louis Vuitton in Union Square that was hit with the mass attack. These are literally our neighbors. And so right now, unfortunately, our governor and attorney general are more focused on those organized thefts that are taking place versus the crime that's being committed to our everyday citizens in the retail industry.
I will add one thing.
Sorry, your time's up.
Oh, shoot. Can I have 30 seconds, Chair? Perfect. We surveyed all of the members. We asked a lot of our members of the coalition to kind of survey their members, because we work with a lot of the associations that have the small business members. And the National Federation of Independent Business, they have about 15,000 small business members. They put out a survey to figure out what their members' thoughts on crime and impact, and why crime seems to be going up. And then they did the same survey in 2001, and 76% of small business owners said that Prop 47 was the cause of it, or they wanted to see a reform of Prop 47. This year, it jumped up to 90% believe that Prop 47 is what needs to be addressed, and not just the money amount, but if we don't want to lower the money amount, then we need to have a repeat policy. We just need to look at something that, if you want to keep some of those things in place, we need to have ways of just benefiting both sides and not just those that are incarcerated. We want to make sure that this works, and that's why we think that's why our members think that a reform to Prop 47 is a good thing to look at first, before just saying, let's just kibosh it and get rid of it and start with something fresh. Let's look at the good that's in there, figure out where the bad is, and let's come to an agreement.
Thank you, sir. Julian, we're back to you, sir.
Sure.
What can attendees in this room and their cities and counties, and by the way, also those participating online, do to address this issue perhaps in a different way than what has been tried in the past?
So let me start with this. First of all, I'm a true believer that it's not just law enforcement's job to solve it, right? This is a whole societal problem that we have right now. It's beyond law enforcement. It has to do with education, it has to do with our legislators that are out there. Number one, I would say, get involved with your chambers, your local chambers. Doesn't have to be a Hispanic chamber, just a chambers. I think, continue to show our business owners that you all support them in what they do. Assemblywoman Rubio was saying, do the math, right, to 41, but, do the math. $950. So we were in a little shop in West Sacramento, the wife and our older daughter and our grandchild, and our daughter goes up to the counter. She goes, "Hey, I think that girl just took that jacket." And they look outside. They go, "Oh, that's the same one." She goes, "I think that, they took a bracelet earlier, right? So with the jacket and the bracelet, when you added it up, it was, almost over $200 for that shop. Those small little, the young ladies that owned the shop. But if you do the math, right, and let's say it's $950, that's the threshold. If an employer is paying $20 an hour, a decent wage, to an individual, that's really about 5 jobs all day, over 8 hours. That, I said earlier it's an insurance premium, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of jobs, right? That's just one taxes that get lost, right? And that's often, 1 or 2 items.
And to the mayor's point, these convenience stores, if you have that kind of loss in the course of a shift, and you are paying probably well north of $20 an hour when you factor in Social Security and the total cost of employing somebody, that's a gigantic impact. So, but again, that seems to be on deaf ears in the Public Safety Committee.
But definitely, I would say one of the things is get engaged with your business community. I think they're an important part out there, and they would appreciate your help. I was just down in Lancaster, California. I get to travel to great places, right? So I was in no offense to anybody from Lancaster or North LA County. But what was real nice to see was that their community servant or their public service person, community person that they honored was a captain from the LASO, right? That they're honoring. And I see that in a lot of our chambers, right? They welcome law enforcement. They want to be engaged with law enforcement. They want your engagement with them. So I'd say that's one way to get engaged. But also, again, you guys are here, so I'm preaching to the choir, right? It's about telling these guys what the real world is like out there. Like Blanca, like Assemblywoman Rubio said, they have no concept sometimes of what they're doing, right? They don't know, just as, he said, was that when you're paying $20, they don't realize that it's actually $25, $26, $30 an hour you're paying when you put in all the taxes. They don't realize that because why? They've never written a paycheck, right? They've never gone on a 100-mile-an-hour chase for, 20 miles when you finally get the guy and understand that, this guy is going to jail, right? Or they don't understand that, you never know the situation. I had a buddy, they don't understand the fact that I had a TL, a training officer, great guy, had to retire early, medical disability, right? Because he went to a domestic violence call, right? Thought everything was cool, and so they were going to take the husband away, arrest him because he had hit the wife, and there was bruises and everything else. Well, then of course, as many of you know, all of a sudden the wife's attacking the officer, so he's walking away, and he jumps on her, so it cranks his back, and he's out He's out of a job. They don't understand those things that you all face every day. And so you have to educate them on it. So, we're talking about getting to know legislators. For instance, we just had a reception last night and we had about 20 legislators there. The new speaker-elect was there, just so our business owners can say, hey, here's what's happening. Good to meet you. So if you guys get invited to those things, you might say, I don't want to go, yada, yada, yada. You need to go, right? You need to go and meet that legislator. You need to go and shake their hand. You need to tell them who you are and what you do, right? And become a resource for them, because this is the only way they're going to learn and understand. I think some want to do the right thing and they're good people. Sometimes they've never seen the real world out there that you all face every day.
Thank you. Madam Mayor?
Certainly. Thank you. I'm going to start with something very simple. Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. They have consequences at the local level and at the state level. I know that our law enforcement are involved and engaged, but we really need to step that up. We need to remind our local leaders and our state leaders that this defund the police moniker must end, because it's putting your lives at risk. It's putting my residents' lives at risk. And we need to hold them accountable. It starts with something as simple as that, is being more involved, making sure that people understand that, in these cities where you are seeing a rise in crime, you're also seeing city councils and mayors that don't have your back. And that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. So it still goes back to those relationships that are so important, so that we don't have to count that math when it's at the state capitol. We want more allies there. Our residents, my retailers want allies, but they are frustrated. And so it's going to go back to those accountabilities, that elections have consequences, and it absolutely starts at the local level. And that's where our members, our business community, need to rise up and have a seat at the table, demand a seat at the table. Because politics is happening all around us, and elected officials should not get a free pass when it's endangering all of our lives. The good news is people are starting to wake up. You've seen some changes take place in San Francisco. You saw it recently in the Chicago mayor's race. You're also seeing it in New York with the mayor there being proactive, because the community is tired. They are tired of the crime that is rampant in their communities. But it also starts very simply of who we are electing, and that defund the police nonsense. It's got to go. And it starts with me. It starts with all of you. Hold everyone accountable. This is a shared relationship. This is a partnership. I can't do this alone. As a mayor, I can't do this alone representing our retailers. It's going to take all of us working together so that we create that sort of community that we demand to see. And I can tell you, the residents, the vast majority of residents are actually with you. So those mayors and councils who don't have your back, remind them in the next election. Remind them in the next election. And let's get our communities empowered and engaged and part of the solution.
Well said. Nate?
Yeah. So on behalf of the 100+ groups and individuals that are part of CARRT, thank you guys for inviting us. We really appreciate the time to just come and explain what's going on our side. But really, thank you for putting your lives in danger and stepping up for the communities that we represent. I know Julian said join your chamber. That's a great idea. You could also join CARRT. We are in. I don't know if you heard, but we are a coalition. But we would like to have you all on board, because at our company we have the moniker of giving a voice to those less heard. And as you all know, law enforcement's voice is being shut down by what other people want to say about you and what you do as a job. And we want to help correct that. We want to make sure that people understand what you're doing in the community. I was talking to a friend the other day who just moved from Ireland, and a friend overheard that he was thinking about becoming a citizen because he wanted to become a police officer in the United States. And this friend that overheard said, "You don't want to be a cop. Cops are bad. You don't want to become a bad guy." And it just like, I can't tell you how it boiled my blood to hear that just that perception of like, if you become a cop, all of a sudden you're this or this label. And I'm sure you guys are tired of people saying what you do for work. And so we want to help you there. At CARRT, that's what we want. We want to be able to tell stories. We're going to be doing an aggressive media push in 2023 to talk about, to tell the stories. We've got, like I said, this coalition they want to share their stories. So we're going to spend this year really blitzing the media on what's really happening with retail theft and how the police and sheriffs and public safety officials are helping us to keep our streets safe and to help fight this problem and where your hands are tied. We understand that there are laws in place that tie your hands, and there's things that frustrate you about the job that you feel like are inhibiting you from keeping the public safe. And we want to be able to help tell that story. It's CARRT.com, right? Org. Sorry, CARRT.org. CARRT.org. 2 R's in that, but
CARRT.org.
.org. And really, it's not just the retailers. We encompass. I myself am a victim of my catalytic converter getting stolen off my car. So we know that's also something that's popping up, and that's why we encompass the retail or residential theft as well, because not just catalytic converters, there's porch piracy and all sorts of stuff that you guys get calls for, and we want to make your jobs easier and less piled up. So we want to make sure that there are answers to your guys' problems. So love to have you all on our individually join our coalition so we can help tell your story of your communities and get you guys in front of the chambers and help you guys make those connections that you need, so we can help do as everybody over here on my left that are smarter than I can help you do.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody in the group? Panel, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Nicely done.